good morning. All right, we need to be a little more enthusiastic. Good morning. Good morning. All right, that's better. I'm really excited to be here. This is my first time at Creative Mornings Louisville, and I've been hearing this is where all the cool people hang out in town. So I'm excited to be here with you all and to meet you all afterwards. I'm Brit Fitzpatrick. I am originally from Louisville, but for the past 9 years, I've been in Memphis, Tennessee. I started a tech company there that I've been running for 5 years as of last month. I'm a graduate of Howard University, and I also, did I hear a little whoop whoop? Okay, cool. And I also have a master's from the University of Memphis. So today I'm just going to be talking to you about my story and what courage means to me. I was really excited when Ben reached out and told me the theme for this month, because this is a word that holds a ton of meaning for me. And I started out by thinking about what it means to be courageous and trying to think about the moments in my life when I have exhibited the most courage. And I found something really interesting, which was that I was looking for moments where I felt very empowered and brave. I like to think of myself as a strong woman, a strong person. And so I try to think of moments where I've kind of brought out my inner badass to show courage. But what I realized when I thought about the moments when I've been the most courageous is they looked a lot less like this and more like this. So I realized that the moments when I've been the most courageous are when I have continued to move forward or acted on something when I was completely terrified. And it's something that I've had to do often, especially as an entrepreneur, where I'm dealing with a lot of uncertainty, where things are constantly changing. And so I realized I'm coming here today to ask you all to do something that's actually kind of scary and hard to do. And so why should we exercise courage if it's so scary and hard? And what I came up with is this. So this is a quote from Brene Brown. Some of you, if you're a Super Soul Sundayer like me, okay, yes, that's Oprah. So this is a quote from Brene Brown. She's one of Oprah's, I guess, BFFs. And she talks about courage a lot, and she says, courage is contagious. And every time we choose courage, we make everyone around us a little better and the world a little braver. And is this not exactly what we need right now with everything that's going on in the world, not only in our own lives, but in our communities and in our country and in the world at large? So I want to show you an example of what it can look like when someone makes a bold decision and impacts those around them through a humorous video that's actually really poignant.
unstoppable. That's right. I got to be unstoppable. That's right. I believe you guys.
Give it up for my man in the blue shorts. So when I was thinking about what it takes to be courageous, I thought, based on this video, that being courageous is a lot like being the first person on the dance floor. You've all been there, you've been at a party, your song is playing, you want to get out there, break out your Harlem Shake or whatever your best dance move is, but you don't really know, like, is it okay to dance here? Are people gonna make fun of me? Are people gonna join me? And so I thought about, in addition to being courageous, I want us to add another title for ourselves, which is being a dance floor evangelist. So it's that decision that you make to be the first on the dance floor that actually invites other people to bring their best moves to the floor. And that's really how you spark movements and create change. And when I thought about like all of the movements or anyone who we consider to be a role model or an icon, courage is somehow underlying their decision making and what sparks that movement or change. So you're probably wondering, like, dance floor evangelist sounds really cool, but Brit, what is that? And since I completely made it up, I thought it would be good to define it. So I started by thinking about people who I would consider to be dance floor evangelists. So people like Mother Teresa, Martin Luther King, Muhammad Ali, of course, Pope Francis, Sojourner Truth, people who have stepped out and really made a difference in the world. And then I thought about, like, what do these people have in common, and what are the small everyday things that they probably had to do that we can all do starting today or continue doing in order to be dance floor evangelists ourselves. So here are 6 small things, seemingly small things that you can do to become a dance floor evangelist. So the first one is share your ideas. So my journey in entrepreneurship actually started with this one decision to share an idea. I have been involved with mentoring since the age of 6. My parents divorced when I was young, so I was raised by a single mom who was also a working mom. So during the summers and after school, she would put me and my brother in mentoring programs. And it's something that I started to volunteer in college as well. And so I was talking to one of my best friends who had just started mentoring about her experience. And she said, you know, Britt, it's going really great, but I was really nervous about how I was going to click with my mentee. I didn't know how it was going to work out. And my first thought was, man, that's really crazy, because you fill out an application to be a mentor, you go through a reference process, typically you do some sort of interview, so you're giving all of this data about who you are, what your interests are, and what your personality is, but then you really don't know at the end of the day when you get matched if it's going to be a good match or not. So the first thing that popped in my head was there needs to be like an eHarmony for mentoring. But I was like, that sounds crazy. Like, if I say this out loud, am I going to sound crazy? But I remember making the conscious decision to share my idea. And my friend she keeps it real. So I knew she was going to tell me whether or not this was a good idea. And her reaction was, girl, that's a great idea. You should pitch that. Verbatim. She was taking an entrepreneurship class at the University of Memphis. She was also getting her master's. And so she sent me all of the information about how you put together a pitch for a new idea. And it just so happened that around that time, Memphis was focused on growing the number of women entrepreneurs in the community, and they were doing a startup weekend type of event for women entrepreneurs with new ideas for tech companies. So I am a perfectionist, a recovering perfectionist at that, and I was terrified about going in with something that was not fully developed, but I wrote down my idea literally on a piece of paper. I got in front of a room full of people I didn't know, similar to this room, and I pitched my idea. And it was that decision to be vulnerable and to put myself out there, starting with sharing my idea, that completely changed the course of my life. So not even 2 months later, I had left my job, applied to our local startup accelerator, which at the time was the only one that we had, and I was the first woman CEO to be accepted. Thank you. So this is me at demo day. in May 2013, and I wound up securing, about 6 months later, I secured $250,000 in angel investment to get my company off the ground. So thank you. So I share that to say you just never know what can happen just through the simple act of just having the courage to share your ideas. Second thing is trusting yourself. I believe that courage and intuition go hand in hand. When I started my company, I was running into all kinds of closed doors, and I feel like that happens anytime you're expanding and trying something new. You're going to run into obstacles. People who I was trying to sell my mentoring technology to could not grasp why my database and my platform was better than a spreadsheet or a Word document. And so we were really one of the first entrants in this market to do anything with mentoring technology, period. So the space was new. I was a new product idea for the market I was in. So there were all kinds of barriers I was running into. But I kept going because I just knew that I was onto something. I knew that I was providing something valuable. And so I trusted myself, but I also trusted my purpose and why I started this. And wound up growing some of those same customers who I could not get to take a full hour conversation with me ended up being customers later on. We onboarded more than 100 mentoring programs over the course of a year and a half. And we've been featured in all kinds of media outlets, Fast Company, Essence, Inc. magazine. So all of that just came from facing those obstacles head on, but continuing to trust that I started this for a reason and trusting why I started it and trusting that there was something on the other side of those doors if I just kept going. The next thing is writing it down. I'm a big believer in the power of words and visualization. So the content writer in the front. And I am notorious for having Post-its around. It doesn't look like this. I'm not that crazy. A few Post-its around my room, around like just all over my space, because I just believe in setting reminders, whether it's inspirational quotes, whether it's certain words, whether it's words like intention, or things that I just want to be reminded of, because you're always going to run into those challenging moments, and so it's good to just have those reminders around so that you're looking at them, and before you know it, you've kind of embodied whatever those words are when you're going out into the world. The other thing that's really powerful, and some of you may have done this, is vision boarding. So specifically, you know, when you being courageous involves knowing what you want to accomplish, and so creating a vision board of whether it's digital or if you want to do old school and get arts and craftsy with it and do a poster of the things that you want to create in the world is also really powerful. The next thing, as we all know, courage involves getting out of your comfort zone. So after I graduated from the accelerator, I made the decision to sell my car, which was also on its last leg, and move out of my apartment and pack my stuff and go to San Francisco for an accelerator. It was kind of an accelerator for those who had already been through the initial process of entrepreneurship training. So this was really about connecting you to investors and people who can really take your business to the next level. And it was also the first accelerator to focus on minority founders, called NewMe. So I made this decision, moved across the country, and something really interesting happened. So I was living in a house full of strangers. It's probably the size of maybe these first 5 rows of chairs. I'm not exaggerating. It's kind of like the real world meets a different world, if you've ever seen that show. And I had a conversation with an investor, and within 5 seconds of talking to me, he stopped me, and he said, you know, I don't think that you're an entrepreneur, because I don't think you're willing to go out of your comfort zone. Ironically, I had moved all of my stuff to San Francisco, and I'm living in a house with 5 strangers, you know, and all to grow my company. And so I could have taken that to heart and allowed that to affect my ability to leverage that experience, but instead I continued to push, and I was like, I'm going to prove him wrong. I'm going to challenge myself even further to do things that scare me and that make me uncomfortable. And so I continued with my company, and again, I ended up raising funding later that year. Also, some really other cool things happened. So I got invited to the first White House demo day to pitch my company to the former US CTO, Megan Smith. She was the CTO under the Obama administration. And while I was there, y'all, so I was walking through the hall, and I was talking to other entrepreneurs, and a man in a black suit approached me, and he said, "Brit Fitzpatrick?" And I said, "Yes." It's not something you want to happen in the White House, right? He said, "I need you to come with me." I said, "Okay." So I followed him. We got to a big door. He turned around and he said, "Okay, are you ready?" I think. "You're going to be standing behind the president. Get yourself together." So when President Obama came and addressed everyone to talk about the importance of entrepreneurship and innovation, I got to stand behind him. The girl who wasn't an entrepreneur, who wasn't willing to get out of her comfort zone, got to stand behind the president as an example of what entrepreneurship and innovation looks like in the US. So you just never know what can happen. That's me trying not to push everyone out of the way to shake the president's hand. The next thing is find your tribe. If there's anything that building technology to keep people connected has taught me, it's just reinforced the importance of just relationships. I feel like regardless of what technology we build, relationships are always going to be the core to getting things done, whether it's in business or in life. And so having that tribe of like-minded folks, I'm definitely preaching to the choir because you all are here today, is really important in terms of maintaining your courage and just doing things that are scary. There's power in numbers. There's that African proverb, if you want to go alone. If you want to go far, go together. So I feel like finding your tribe is essential in terms of being a dance floor evangelist, having the people who are going to dance with you on the dance floor. And the final thing is build it anyway. This is a song lyric, but it also embodies what my experience has been like, honestly, as a woman and a person of color, particularly in the tech space, building a company in a city that, originally in Memphis, that's not really known for tech startups. A lot of times, forget about a seat at the table, there was no table to sit at. So I had to take different paths than what would be spouted as the traditional or the ideal path for an entrepreneur. And it turns out that my ability to do that was genetic. So I want to tell you about someone who is a great example of being a table maker. So this is Joe. I call him Grandpa. And my grandpa is an engineer. And I don't know that he would call himself an engineer, but he definitely has the skills and the capabilities of one. He didn't have the opportunity to go to college. He actually worked for the Ford truck plant off of Gene Snyder for about 30 years. And growing up, I didn't really know a lot about him. He's not a super outgoing man. He's kind of quiet and kind of reserved. But I knew he was very disciplined and very routine. I knew he would get up at the crack of dawn, he would make a cup of Folgers, and he would read the newspaper. I should probably bring him to Creative Mornings because he's already up at that time anyway, and you all have great coffee here. But I had an experience when I was around 8 or 9 where I learned something about him that I didn't know. So it was always kind of taboo to go and look around in my grandpa's room, but being a little bit mischievous, I did that anyway. And I was ruffling through his desk, and I found these blueprints, which were the first time I'd ever seen any blueprints in my life. I didn't really know what they were, but they were very well drawn. They were very detailed. And I took them out and I took them to my granny and I said, "Who drew these?" And she said, "Oh, your grandpa drew those." And it's at the time that I realized that in addition to being hardworking and disciplined, my grandpa is actually a gifted civil engineer. And it just made me realize that although that he made sacrifices and forwent opportunities in order to put me and my other family members in a position to be able to follow our dreams and to have these great acts of courage. And so I try to honor him by doing the same and putting others in a position where I'm creating platforms to give other people a position to pursue their dreams. So when I was in Memphis, one of the things that I noticed was that there was a lack of representation within our entrepreneurship community, and so I started Geeked Memphis, which was around just overall giving underrepresented creatives and entrepreneurs an opportunity to grow their businesses, connecting them to resources. We actually brought the Shark Tank casting team to Memphis last year to do just a casting call with all minority entrepreneurs, and we had about 80 companies that pitched them. And this is an opportunity that doesn't happen that often there. I also started the Lapel Project, which is coined after Maya Angelou's adage about women grabbing life by the lapels for women entrepreneurs and creatives, and that's still ongoing. So being a dance floor evangelist is really hard. It's really scary. It's no small feat. And a lot of times when I'm out in the world dancing, I honestly feel like I'm on a totally different beat than everybody else. But when that happens, I just want to encourage you all to keep dancing. As I stated earlier, a lot of times I'm the only one at the party who looks like me. And if that's true for you too, I want to encourage you to keep dancing. And finally, there are moments where I honestly feel like, do I even belong at this party? Are my dance moves good enough? And I want to encourage you, if you have those thoughts, don't stop, keep dancing. So I talked about the importance of visualization, so I want to share something that's really personal to me. Can anyone guess what these are? Just shout it out if you have a guess. I heard seeds, but just chickpeas, garbanzo beans. So these are actually a close-up of mustard seeds. So seeds, close. And I like mustard seeds a lot, which sounds strange. But the reason being that they are, if I was to hold up a mustard seed right now, you wouldn't be able to see it. It's very, very small. But the cool thing about these is that this small seed can grow up to be this tree, which is about 3 of me tall. It's very tall. And so I think it's a great metaphor for the things that can happen when you step out onto the dance floor, when you decide to be first and invite other people to the party. Whatever that idea is, whatever you're trying to spark, it starts off with that small mustard seed, but when you keep going, it can turn into this tree, and that's the difference that you're making in the world. And I feel like now more than ever, we need to invite more people to join the party to create change. I was talking to Bryce with Access, and I was telling him one of the things that I loved when I looked at the photos from previous events and the speakers is the diversity of this community. I feel like every single community needs to look like this. Like the people who are in this room, this is how we're going to move things forward, not only in our community, but in our country and across the world. Thank you. So my final words to you, if you don't remember anything else that I've said today, is don't wait for change, create it.